Hello, everyone, and welcome to a fantastic new episode of the StudioMEcast. I am joined in our speakeasy here by two people who have been on the show before. It's Kathleen Regan and Simon Barracchini. Beforehand, on two previous episodes, they came in to talk about their feature film, Godless Children, and they are back because they were just at AFM Santa Monica, and they were able to procure a distribution deal for that feature film, Godless Children. And we're going to be talking a lot about that experience, the things they learned and researched going into it. And but for that, first off, let me just say congratulations
Thank you.
on
Appreciate
this.
it. Thank you.
Wonderful news. Super happy to hear about that, you know. And but we want to talk about AFM, what you learned there going into it. Let me just start with, when did you decide to go to AFM?
It was when we were, when we were making the film, I think one of our goals always was get it out there. This is our calling card. This is probably not going to be a huge moneymaker, but it's our calling card. So it was always the goal to get a distribution deal. And AFM was always sort of a target of ours. And it's American Film Market, if people don't know. It's where people buy and sell films, basically. It's once a year in Santa Monica in the U.S. There's like 3 in the world or something like that. But so I think that was always our goal.
Fantastic.
And,
yeah.
I mean, it was definitely something that we had targeted, but I don't necessarily think at the time we knew exactly what it was. I mean, we had an idea. I had done some work with a different filmmaker, and he had brought up that was one of his goals. That was something that in the front of my mind. Talked about it with Kathy. She knew a little bit about it, but again, going into it, I would say we didn't know exactly what we were setting ourselves up for. It was more of like, we know that this exists and that we should go to it. And I think through the process that we're going to talk about is, we learned so much.
That's great that you also had this idea before you were finished with the film, because so many people who do make a film, which isn't that many people actually, it turns out, but the people who do, a lot of the time, if they're, a young independent filmmaker out of film school or something like that, they might not think about what am I going to do with this movie? They're just focusing on making it, because that's a lot of work in itself. But you had this goal before you even finished making the film. Now, having that idea together, had you been to AFM before this, or was this your first trip?
First trip.
What kind of preparation did you do for this?
I'll let you take that one.
How much time do we have? Well, first of all, like I was saying to you, one of the reasons we reached out for this topic is the amount of information that we were clueless about was astonishing. Like, I thought in my brain, I worked in corporate world. I've been to trade shows. I've been to film festivals. I thought, it's California. You wear, hip kind of festival clothes, and maybe there's a big ballroom. And you go table to table. Like, that's in my mind what it was. And we started about a month and a half out from the AFM when you actually get your pass. And you can start going on their site, getting a little bit more research, and realize it was completely not that at all. It is all business, like business suits, business. The executives are there. What they do is they rent out hotel rooms for 5 days. They take out the furniture, and they make it their own film studio. And so...
You mean like hotel ballrooms, or
no.
hotel
rooms,
2-bed kind of?
2-bed. They take out the beds, they take out the tables, they redesign it. They spend $11,000, $12,000 to rent that room, and it is their office. And they even call it their office. This is my office at the AFM, number 905. And so when you go there, it is not a festival funky wear. You wear your business suit. You schedule business meetings. You're dealing with executives. They don't care if you've won a festival. What are you going to do for me? right? What's in it for me? How am I going to make money off of you?
Now, real quick, just cutting in for a moment, for anyone who's maybe not, doesn't already have an awareness of this, we kind of mentioned it before, but to re-clarify, the point of these film markets is to sell your film, maybe get a film funded or commissioned. Networking, building relationships is a big thing, and Simon and Kathleen's goal was to get a distribution deal for the film that they had already completed, Godless Children. All right, so, and these offices, they're each one's like maybe are they representing individuals or production companies? Is it a mix?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of distribution companies, production companies, and maybe an individual here and there. There were some lawyers, and also there was a whole level for countries, like their film offices and things like that. So bring filmmakers to film in their territories or their country or their area. So when you go around, basically, like Kathy said, is that each company, or sometimes 2 to 3 companies in a room, would rent out, and they have a sign over top saying who is in that room. And again, they have all the furniture taken out, posters, they got tables in there. Some of them even had like a receptionist that would meet you at the door and like kind of be the gatekeeper to make sure that you don't just walk in on a meeting. But basically, you have to look at this whole layout and figure out from floor to floor where you're going. Because otherwise, I mean, there might be a whole section of floor 6 that's about animation. Like, that's not going to help you. Or like the floor 9 is like, a little more like the film offices, or it might be entertainment lawyers that are looking for clients. So they're basically everything for an independent filmmaker. And that's one thing about AFM, is more independent minded. I mean, there are some big names that come in there. Like, I think when we were there, one of Olivia Colman's films was being shopped around.
Oh, how wonderful.
So it's
Love her.
Lots
Not
of different
intimidating
levels.
at all. Not
No,
intimidating.
you don't-
Not at all.
You don't feel like an imposter at all. But the thing is that it's all different levels, but it's more independently focused. It's not necessarily, you're not going there with Warner Brothers up against you, like, for the most part. So everything there is focused on all parts of the business. Again, it's the business side, not necessarily when you go to a festival and you're going to a screening and then maybe like a mixer after. Everyone's there on a phone, on a computer. Like, everyone's talking about, did you get this person to talk to? Did you do that? So you're constantly in a mode of selling or buying. And it's very, like, not chaotic, but very focused. And so you can't really deviate. You can't really do these things. So that's why, you have to have a kind of a game plan when you go in there, and you have to realize where all of your targets or your markets are and figure out where to go visit them.
It sounds a little bit like there's not a whole lot of, so tell me about your inspiration and vision for this. It's about the business. So what other kind of preparation did you do?
So what we did was, again, a month and a half out, we bought our tickets. It's usually 5 days. We picked the
AFM's 5 days long?
5 days long. Okay. We picked the 3-day package just because it's expensive. But it turns out people all said that if they don't make deals usually until the end of the week. So the 3 days that we had was just perfect because it was towards the end of the week. In the beginning of the week, they're setting up their meetings, they're deciding where they're going to make deals, and at the end of the week is when they make the deal. So if you can't afford the whole 5 days, I think 3 days was plenty for us. The other thing is we got a parking pass, which was totally worth it in LA.
I bet, yeah.
So those were like the first things. But so one of the things they tell you at the AFM is, if you go to the AFM without having a meeting set up, good luck. Like, you need to have those set up a month ahead of time. And so when you get your pass, you get access to the AFM catalog of every distributor, every production company that's coming, and they give you they have a little link in the catalog, and they have their name, they have who's going to show up there, what kind of films they represent, get you a link to their website, their phone number, their address, their email. Sometimes the email, which is personal email, not the one you find on their site, like info@, right? It's like a personal email. So we started cataloging every single name, and there's additions and deletions all the time. So it was like an every other day process. I think I cataloged over 399 names in companies.
When you say cataloging, do you mean like you were seeing if they would be a good fit
Yep.
for the film. You were doing your research on them. You weren't just going to blast everybody with this
No,
because
you
you've only
can't.
got 3 days.
Right.
You know,
You
all right.
can't. So, but I thought it was helpful just to have everything cataloged, even if it wasn't a good fit for us, just to say why it wasn't a good fit. Like, we found one that was not a good fit for us. It was a good fit for possibly a colleague. So, hey, FYI, here's one you may want to look into with your film, you know, that kind of thing. So we cataloged everything, and then we went through it all and said, okay, who does dramatic thrillers? Who's put out dramatic thrillers in the last couple of years? Not from 1993, but who's actively, you know, selling dramatic thrillers, which is our film. So after you narrow that down, then you look at, hey, if they already have their office in New York or Pittsburgh, probably don't need to see them in Santa Monica. Like if we,
Yeah, that's the point.
let's focus on the ones that are outside the cities where we live. So that was like narrowing down again. Then there's distributors and sales agents. Sales agents will take a cut, but they will sell you to a distributor.
So hiring a sales agent can be beneficial for perhaps a newer filmmaker who hasn't sold anything. This person already kind of know they can do a lot of the work for you. Is that kind of what? All right.
Yeah. So what they will do, a sales agent will obviously take a cut of whatever your final revenue is, but they will go out and shop your film to different distributors. So you have an avenue to go that way, or you can go straight to the distributors.
Do those sales agents usually work with a larger agency, or are they lone actor type people?
There's the smaller agencies. There wasn't any real big sales agencies.
No, not really. I mean, again, you may have like a smaller agency that might have 2 or 3 sales agents, but you're not talking like, you know, mega giant, you know, sales companies that have like, you know, a staff of like 100.
Okay.
So, yeah, but like Kathy was saying, it's just, you know, you could, if you don't do the homework and you want to still get out to the distributors, maybe a sales agent's for you, because then they'll do the work for you and, you know, basically ask you some questions and then sell it to these distributors. But in our case, like she was saying, is we don't necessarily need that because we were doing the work, we were doing the research. So why take a cut of a deal that you might get for something that you're already doing? So that was something, especially going to this event, we're going to meet those distributors potentially. So let's just go straight to them.
So you had reached out to a lot of these. You were focusing on distributors.
We were focusing on distributors not in our location.
Right.
And the other thing we got, I watched a video about how to work the AFM, you know, like how to work the thing. And they, you know, it was very good. But they said, when you send these emails, start a month beforehand. So we were going out November 1st, you know, start October 1st, send them an introductory email requesting a meeting right in the subject line, but you have to make something personal. Why them? Like, why is your film good for them? What's in it for me? Don't mention festivals. They don't care. They want to know the bottom line. So after we narrowed down who we were going to target with emails, then we did more research about, hey, the thrillers that they're putting out. Like, I watched a lot of bad movies just to say, oh, you know, your movie, the blah, 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 is similar to ours, you know, just so we can talk about it. So I tried to watch one or a little bit of one movie of every one we sent an email to. Or I would go on their website and find interviews and be like, hey, just like, you know, your CEO said this in an interview, that's how we're a perfect fit. So like, this is why you should look at us, right? And then we put in the email, we put a link to our IMDb page, but also a link just to the trailer, because sometimes they don't want to hunt for it. Like, they don't want to go on IMDb and look for the trailer. They just want, give me the trailer. So we started sending those out. Again, we didn't know what we would get or not get. So we kind of sent like a first wave, kind of like, you know, let's test it and see if it's working kind of thing. And we got a call, like we got an email right away. You know, usually they ask for a screener, and you can.
Yeah. So usually if they really show interest, if you haven't given them the trailer, they'll ask for the trailer. Once they've seen the trailer, then they're like, okay, if they're still interested, they're going to be like, can I get a screener? And usually you want a password protected screener, or something along the lines of like a watermark screener, just to give them so that A, you're protected, but also B, you know, just something that they can see right then and there, and they can see for themselves if they want to continue further, if they want to talk about it more at a meeting, or, send it up the chain and get some, potential offer on the table. But it helps to have that ready to go.
And it's copyrighted already.
And that's also something as well. That's some good point, is something that some filmmakers don't think to do. Make sure that's like copyright. Like put it through the U.S. Copyright Office.
The film itself.
And your screenplay. Make sure both of them are protected, because you are going to be sending it out to people who, unfortunately, you can't trust every company that's out there. Now, granted, the American film market, most of those companies are vetted, so they can be vouched for, but you never know. And you never know who's going to get it.
Yep. Just cover your bases.
Exactly.
Don't be stupid.
Yeah. So when you send it out, you can at least have confidence that, like, if something happens, I can back that up. But, you'll send the screener to them, and then they'll reply back and say, hey, I would love to have a meeting, or this isn't really for us. Or sometimes you might get some people that say, this isn't for us, but we're also just interested in your company. What else do you have? And so being able to show that you are paying attention and creating, like Kathy said, the very
Were you ready
personal...
for that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For the, like, what else do you have?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, creating that personal connection
Oh,
definitely adds to that.
Sorry to interrupt.
You know me, I over-prepare.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but that was like I had to ask.
Totally
I'm
good.
like, that's an interesting question.
Like my therapist said, that's how I manage my anxiety. I look at every possible question that's out there and try to prepare for it. So we looked at everything they could possibly ask us. But
yeah, and we had a list ready of projects that we were either in different phases of writing or whatever. We could then say, okay, great. If they want to ask us about what our next projects are, here's what we're going to come up with. And we were ready and covered for whatever scenario came our way.
Now, so much of what we're talking about is so foreign to filmmakers and their typical mindset. Not that there is one, but there's my point being, a lot of the way I'm trying to look at this, and a lot of the questions I'm asking, I guess, are around the idea of, like, I guess maybe a bit of bursting the bubble, a bit of trying to figure out, like, how do you fit in an industry that works this way? When you're sending these emails out, to what degree are you pitching your film, or, like, I guess even what it's about? Are you saying, here's the check boxes of, it's a thriller, it's this and this, or are you like, are you expressing why that story is important to you in those emails? Like, is there a place for that? What's
so when you're sending the emails, it's a real brief. Godless Children, completed feature film, dramatic thriller. I don't even think we put the log line in the email. It's this is what we have, and by the way, this is why this is why we're a good fit with your company. Again, it's the mindset that you're talking about. It's all business. So you're not meeting with the creative person, at, production company that wants to talk film and, no, you're talking about a business person that says, how are you making it easy for me? And how are you going to make money for me? So they, log line, whatever, like, tell me what you can do for me. So the email itself was just like, hey, this is what we have. Okay, if you already have enough thrillers, because someone said to us, one person's like, you know what, I have enough thrillers, but I like your thing. Come talk to me about something else, right?
Yeah.
But it's more about, like I said, like, hey, I saw your film that you just put out here. We are very similar, and let me tell you why, right? Or, hey, when you just mentioned this at Toronto Film Festival, we are exactly there. Or even just like, hey, congratulations on your always keeping up with the news when we talked about before. Hey, congratulations on, acquiring those 2 thrillers at Cannes. Let me tell you, you know what I mean? Like, so it's business. It's all business. So then once you get like the screener out to them, right, you may get a meeting set up at the AFM. They'll be like, okay, let's book you here. We got meetings like they wanted to meet with us before. So before the AFM.
Ooh.
So it was like, we called each other at one point. We were talking, I'm like, this is not something we expected. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But like, we did not expect it. So we, once someone reached out to us, we did a little bit more investigating on that production company. And there's a couple Facebook pages you can go on. that people talk about different deals that they've had. So we kind of know in our head like what the reputation is, or we can do a little research on that. But we quickly realized too is we had a couple companies we met with before the AFM, and we realized that the good use of our money with our level of lower budget feature film, never having to do anything, no stars in the film, right? They always want to know who's in it, right? Who did you get in it? Who's the star in it? We don't have a star. And
Well, maybe not yet.
not yet. Yeah, exactly. But we quickly realized that we're probably not going to get a great deal at our level. There's not a lot of like, oh my God, I'm getting $1 million, right? We're not expecting to make $1 billion in this, but where we should spend the money is on a good entertainment lawyer. So we interviewed about 4, reached out to friends of ours to get networking. Who did you work with? Who's the entertainment lawyer that you've worked with? We interviewed 4 or 5. We settled on final one, and it was 100% worth the money for her. But we also, lawyers are different things. So they may one asked for a huge retainer. Well, I'm not, we're low. We don't have $6,000 to like
where we're
just
from?
hang. Yeah, we don't have $6,000 to just retain you.
Yeah, we
right?
just spent all that money on the whole film. Like we're at the end now. We have no money. Help us.
Yeah, help us.
Yeah.
And we found this lawyer. She's amazing. She teaches at Southwestern. She teaches entertainment law. And she was fantastic, very cost effective, very helpful in the end. But we realized that pretty quickly. So that's something I would say to people as well. Make sure you have a lawyer in your back pocket, or ready to go.
And you can meet those at AFM, right? That's what you're saying? Or
There aren't that many. There's like
Really?
one or
No.
two,
You have to get
but
them
like
beforehand.
you really should
Alright.
before
Okay.
like, really dig out.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you have to have ahead of time.
And the reason too.
Oh, so you got her for when you went to AFM?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good. All right.
Even what Kathy is saying is we did that when we started getting notice that people wanted to meet beforehand, because we're like, we don't know if we say the wrong thing in these meetings, or if we, God forbid, got an offer, and what are we looking at? So having a person,
is that good? Is
Yeah.
this a good deal?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you trying
exactly.
to shaft me here?
Yeah, exactly. You don't know.
Right.
you just don't know, and so you want to have somebody in your corner that can say, no, don't say that. Ask for this. That's not good language. Let's do this. And especially when you go to AFM, because that's all you're doing. That's all you're there for, is to sit down and have these discussions and have these deals come up, hopefully. And to have someone in your corner that you can easily, after meeting with somebody, and go, I got this wording, or they were talking about this. Like, should we ask for that? There was even a moment, and this is just a quick little fun story, is one of the first meetings we had before the AFM, there was a company that asked us what our MG was. And it was funny because Kathy and I would just text offline and we go, "What's MG?" And quickly jump
We're
online,
Googling it.
Yeah, Google. Again, it's not knowing these things. It helps to have
For the
somebody.
people at home who don't know what an MG is.
For what MG is, it's
Minimum
minimum guarantee. It's what do you want? Like, what's the minimum price that you could want out of this deal?
Oh, that sounds a little bit like Pawn Stars. Oh, what's your best price?
Yeah, what's your best price? Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. So, again, it's things like that you don't necessarily know going into it, that someone like an entertainment lawyer you can lean on and really ask these questions and not feel stupid, or not feel like you're gonna blow a deal or blow a chance at a deal because you don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, and it's also good to, we used her, be like, we got to run it by our lawyer, so it bought us a little bit of time, that kind of thing. But we did some research on different types of distribution deals, so we knew kind of, there's an expense cap type of deal where it says, listen, I'm the production company, I'm going to put out all this money, $10,000 broken out this way. And when I get you the deal, I need to recoup my $10,000 first, and that's the cap. And then we start splitting it, whatever that split is. So that's one type of deal. It's very popular for lower budget, non-star feature films. That's pretty popular. That's what it is. There's some that say, I'm going to give you 5,000 MG up front, 5,000. Then I'm going to recoup my 15,000. Then we split. So there's all bunch of different deals that you can do, or you can split right away. So there's a whole bunch of different deals. So we knew a little, but one part of the world is when you don't know something, hire someone that does, right? Hire the expert. So we quickly got an entertainment lawyer before we went to the AFM because we started having these conversations that we were not prepared for. And she was great. And I recommend her if anyone wants to talk to me offline. I'll happy to give your name. But the other thing we realized too is I did some research on, well, one is don't ever tell anyone your budget. Like ever tell anyone your budget. No one needs to know the budget at all. So
they'll ask. But don't ever tell them.
And like then, what the budget for the film was.
Budget for the film. You don't tell them budget of the film. No one needs to know that. And that's one thing our lawyer said. She goes, no one needs to know that. But me. Like if you wouldn't have to tell me. Like, but no one needs to. So what people would say, but like, so they'll say, well, was it under 100? And we're like, well, yeah. They don't need to know it was how much under 100. Do you know what I mean? But like they would classify it as, oh, it's under 100,000. Yeah, sure. So don't ever tell them that.
We got very crafty at how to answer that question.
How to answer that question. Yeah, it was interesting. But the other thing is I looked up, like when a distributor offers a deal to a independent filmmaker, what are their biggest complaints with like independent filmmakers first time? Like what do they usually complain about, right? I watched interviews. And there was a couple things they complain about. One is they complain about your legal stuff is not up to date. So your copyright, your actor and crew releases, any kind of, if you have any, building or business in the film, mentioned in the film, like they have to have their signature, right? Their agreement, any kind of agreement between the writers. Everything has to be legally buttoned up. And a lot of filmmakers don't have that. A lot of filmmakers don't have a lawyer. So they're like, oh, I need a lawyer. Okay, let me wait 6 months and let me find a lawyer. Oh, I don't have any of this stuff on Dropbox, right? So we researched, which is called, it's like a checklist or distributor list.
Basically your deliverables.
Deliverable list.
And so also on there too, there's things that some people might not know. Like if somebody comes up and says, I need your chain of title. Like, what does that mean? That means that like the ownership of that film goes towards what they want is a specific person or company that they are going to deal directly with. And if that film is not listed in the copyright to that company, you need to sign it over. And that's your chain of title document and things like that. Like who currently owns this property that I can deal with.
So it's not just Simon and Kathleen, it's Rumination Images.
Correct.
Has Godless Children.
But what we had done when we
form an LLC, everybody.
Yes.
Do it.
It'll save you in the long run. And also, what we had done when we first wrote the script is we actually wrote the copyright in our name. So what we had to do is we had to create a document that we then signed it over to the company, even though technically we are the company.
Yeah.
But legally, they have to see that. And that's another piece of documentation that you need. And these are the little things that you see in these deliverable lists that you don't necessarily know, and you won't know unless you do it.
And I imagine a lot of them can just add up so much with just the time that a deal that you might have, like, oh, well, I got to go all these signs, I got to go back to that business and get a waiver and all, and then by the time you get done with that, maybe the deal isn't there anymore. So
or you're just delaying how long your film's going to take to come out. Like maybe you get that deal right to the finish line, and you can't cross it yet till all these things are done. Jeez. But if you drag your feet, I mean, that's months and months and months where your film's just sitting and collecting dust.
And that was one of the biggest things. And we had a lot of that already from the start before our film started. A lot of times they want auditions videotaped. Do you have the videotape of the Zoom audition? Have you videotaped? Like they want that stuff. Like some of them ask for that stuff.
Do they ask, like, so it's not just do you have it, but like they want you to send them all the
Dropbox
waivers and release forms and everything?
Yeah, you should have it all ready to go in an online form, whether it's Google Drive or Dropbox or wherever, and you should have stuff like that, whether it, obviously the film, and then the screenplay and like all your legal documentation, but they all, like Kathy is saying, is they also want like behind the scenes things. They want, do you have behind the scenes footage or photos? Do you have the audition tapes? Do you have stuff like basically the DVD extras? Do you have all that stuff? And then, eventually like SRT files for your closed captions, or if you have publicity shots, poster art, all that stuff. Like, the more that you can do, and this is something a lot of people said to us while we were there and beforehand that we researched, is the more that you have and can do on your own, A, you'll save yourself a lot of money, and B, it'll also be beneficial to them because they don't have to shell out the money to get your poster made or to get these publicity shots taken. And the more you can do beforehand, the better.
Yeah. And that was one of the biggest things that we knew going in, that we had that pretty much buttoned up. I mean, and there probably maybe 1 or 2 deliverables they may ask for that we don't have or whatever, but that was ready to go. We had a lawyer ready to go. So when we were going into these companies and they say, why should we go with you? You don't have a star. Okay, we have that buttoned up. The other thing.
Hang on, I want to ask one more thing about that list of stuff, which is the list of things that these distributors or production company or whatever want. Is it all the same stuff, or are there different ones that want different things, or is it just do as much as possible? Like, is there?
Yeah, they're relatively the same. I mean, some might want more than others. I mean, we've seen deliverable lists from several companies, and one was a little more detailed. One was like, I want Dolby 5.1 surround audio, and I also want mono audio. I want this. I want all these different tracks. Another one was just like, we'll take a 1080p, version of your film. Like, it could be, they're asking for similar things, but one's a little more in depth, one's not. One's waiting to see if you go with, a big network or small SVOD or, video on demand, like things like that. Whether or not, the deal you get or who you work with depends on how much that list changes, but the basics stay the same.
All right, cool. You were saying.
No, that's totally good, because again, we researched that before we got in to say, what does a deliverable list even look like? Are we ready for it? So we knew we kind of had the most that we could on that end. The other thing that we knew is that we looked up information about thrillers, dramatic thrillers, LGBTQ films. What's the thirst for that in the industry? So what does the industry want? Are they watching these films? Who's watching these films? So we did a lot of statistics around, hey, this is why our film will be great in these kinds of markets. So that was another thing that we were pretty marketable. We also had the Reframe certification, which is Women in Film. It's a gender balance certification, and they also offer social media marketing for free once you get a distribution deal. So we're like, hey, distributor, we have all of our legal stuff. We have all these different markets, marketing things, angles that we can go into, and we have marketing help on social media for free. So that was, oh, okay. So that's another they have this, so that's another kind of, I don't have to worry about that. And the third thing was the statistics, the marketing. And so we researched all that ahead of time. So we did a leave behind. Someone suggested in one of these videos, this sales agent was like, listen, if you don't have a meeting with me, don't approach me at AFM. Don't even approach me. I don't want to talk to you. He said, but if you are going to approach me, you better be buttoned up, look professional, and give me a leave behind that's professional. Don't give me, a flyer that tells me, you won 6 festivals. I don't care. Right? So we're like, oh my gosh, scared the heck out of us. So we did like a rack card sort of leave behind, and on the front, it's all business. On the front, we had him. We'll give you a copy, and it said, "We will not make you $1 million."
You can see on screen what they're talking about right now. In fact, everyone who's listening to this in your car, just at your next red light, take a look.
Yeah, at the red light, not now.
Yeah, please don't.
But we put on the front, you also have to be realistic. They say that your goal at the AFM is to get a second meeting. That should be your goal.
So it's not even necessarily to get the deal signed there, because there's paperwork.
There's paperwork.
Right?
There's, they may, which a lot of them did, they may look at all of the meetings they had and not even decide as a company until 2 weeks later who they're going to call in for second rounds or third rounds. So your goal is just to get the second meeting or the first meeting. That's your goal. And be realistic about your film. We're like, listen, we seriously doubt we're going to make you $1 million. So that was our lead-in. It was like, we're not going to make you $1 million. We put a little asterisk that says, we'll try. But this is what we can do for you, right? And we laid it out. This is what we have. We have this buttoned up. We have this. We have this. And then you turn it over on the rack card, and it was like, and these are the statistics and a graph showing why we're a marketable film. So it was all business. We also had the QR code that led right to...
Yeah, it led to a specific website page for the film, which had all the basically IMDb information that you would see, like the trailer right off the bat as soon as you get onto the page, but also, synopsis, logline, who's in it, notable crew, things like that.
Was this a website that you had put out through other social media to promote the film otherwise, or was it specifically for this?
So it was a specific page for the film on the Rumination website.
Okay.
But we had the QR code target specific that page. So as soon as they scanned it, they could we also had business cards as well, for both of us with our contact information, but also the same QR code. So if they lost that leave behind and they just had our business card, they could still access that page.
That's great.
And so just making sure that there was always a way to link to the information they're looking for and get right to it. As few clicks as possible, the ease of use and the ease of getting to that information. And, when we did that leave behind too, it's also a chance for us to break in a little bit. Like, say we didn't have a reply email from them. When we sent out our large emails a month ahead and we get into a meeting and we're like, hey, we didn't hear from you and we had sent some emails, but just to refresh you, here is our information. And we can give them that rack card. So that kind of creates an avenue, because then they play oh yeah, I think I remember. Some people might have, some people might not have. But that chance to just be like, oh, I'll look this over. Oh, this QR code takes me right there. That already piqued their interest, because now they're like, I know how to get your information right away. I don't have to go hunting through your emails or, have to go figure out what your name was or write it down, lose it on a piece of paper. It's right here.
And I feel like, not to make general disparaging remarks of anyone in our field, but there's probably a lot of people, hopeful dreamers who show up without that kind of prep.
Oh, yeah.
And they probably deal with that all the time. They're trying to find the people who are serious and prepared, who are going to make it easy for them. So that had to be a huge way to just, get people's attention. Just all the stuff you're talking about sounds like it would help you stand out from, people are like, I've got a film in my suitcase and just the money in my pocket and everyone's going to love me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. And I talked to someone later on who had a distribution deal, and I talked to him, and he was like, yeah, when I went to the AFM, I thought I would, get like $1 million. Like, he's like, yeah, it didn't happen, so, again, the realistic, like, this is what you do, and it's to just get you noticed or get you to that second meeting. It was so important. And also the research we did on the companies and even on the people that are going to be there. So I have a tendency to over-prepare, and luckily Simon
it's better
and
to be
I
over-prepared than under-prepared.
I know, we're on the same page on that, which
yeah.
is good.
Good.
So, we had a Airbnb Verbo place that we rented, and we literally, the people that we had meetings with or that didn't respond, that we did send our link to or screeners to, we had them all mapped out on the wall with their picture, so we could recognize them and be like, oh, Sally, hey, nice to see you,
Rad, I love this.
So so we knew exactly. And then I have a little black book that we mapped out the floors. Okay, we're going to hit these first because these are the people that asked for the screener but never responded after the screener. Go to them first, right? These are the people that we sent 2 emails, never responded. So we kind of mapped it out that way. And like you said, the rack card was a great way to reintroduce ourselves. Hey, you didn't respond, but hey, that's okay. This is what we just want to reintroduce ourselves. The rack card did get us into a couple meetings. Also, what got us kind of talking longer, you just want to talk to them longer even. Just that is a goal. A couple of times I'm like, okay, what? We just don't have time right now. I was like, oh, yeah, great. You know what? I saw your movie, The Blank, but like that. Oh, really? You saw that? So it kind of just that little bit of homework, it went a long way. And the other thing we didn't realize too is, again, not knowing anything, you have to be able to pivot, because you're like, oh, I didn't know that was a selling point. A lot of people out there don't have a finished film. We didn't know that was
a commodity,
a thing,
yeah.
Especially with this year of 118-day plus strike.
Oh man, yeah.
Having a finished, so people would be like, oh, okay, yeah, look at us like this, and I'm like, oh wait, it's finished. Yeah. Oh, come talk to us. It's completed, right?
Yeah.
That was something when I went to Cannes with the Marche to Film there that really surprised me.
Yeah.
Was people would be like, oh, I haven't even made the movie yet.
Yeah.
But I'm talking with people about making it, and just like what you're saying. It's so cool too, because y'all had never gone to AFM before. You have this game plan, and it ends up, like you said, that homework you did went a long way. It wasn't wasted time. There's such thing as spending time on, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm working, but you're a hamster on a wheel. You're not getting anywhere. But doing all this and it having an effect has to feel amazing, right?
And it's one little story off of that too is Kathy had that book, and we would plan out the floors, and we would know who we're talking to, and we're going to talk to this company, that company, then we're going to go down to this floor, and there's 3 down here. We have a meeting at 12. Like, we had it all planned out. So we would go to these rooms and kind of, if we didn't hear from them, we would go in with the rack card, and some of them actually did procure meetings after the fact. So it's not necessarily like if you don't get a meeting before you get there, you don't have a shot. If you didn't do any homework, yes, because here's one story is we were standing outside a room waiting for one of our meetings, and these 2 filmmakers walk up, and they go into the room just out of the blue, and a lot of people do that too. They just hope to get in and knock on the door, and someone suddenly wants to give them a big check. But they went in there and didn't really know anything about the company, because you could tell right away, because they started talking about their documentary that they were doing actually. And it wasn't finished, which, again, big surprise to us that a lot of people didn't go there with finished films. But then they tried to pitch the film or the documentary, and they didn't quite have the pitch ready. And then they also didn't realize that the company that they were talking to wasn't really into the market for documentaries. And then when the distributor basically said, no, thank you, they're like, well, could we still talk to you about it? Like, and they're like, no, thanks. We're good. And then they left and then came back again and tried to pitch it a different way. They're like, well, what if we, and it's like, again, being buttoned up and having that information and doing that research, you avoid all of that awkward conversation. And these companies are seeing people like that. They're seeing unfinished films. They're seeing these pitches and people just coming in not knowing a thing about their company. Wow. So then when someone like you comes in with a lot of research done, having this buttoned up, legal and Dropbox, and having a leave behind and having the QR code and information, they're like, oh, please come sit. Let's talk, because they're tired.
I just talked to these other 2 jokers who pitched the same documentary twice, and we don't
right.
even.
And again, like, we were dressed in business dress. I mean, more business casual, but like
kind of like this.
Yeah, so we looked the part as well. You know what I mean? So it was good. And we actually talked later. We always do a debrief after we do things and what we do differently and whatever. And I said, is there any preparation that we did that we shouldn't have done? And no. Every single bit of it was used. The other part that we talked about is, people may say, and we heard this a year and a half ago, people may say, okay, I don't want that film, but I like you. So what else do you got? Or I like the production quality. What else do you got? So we were prepared. We had a list of films or ideas that we have. We have 2 that are more fleshed out. So we had 2 that were like, okay, these are the ones. We practiced our pitch on those, logline pitch. We, kind of practiced that. And then we did have we already had a meeting set up where they wanted to hear about the next film. But we got into it, and then he had his iPad. And with one of the films that we're writing, he had screenshots.
So there's a lovely website, I'll pitch it, Shot Deck, where they have lots of screenshots from films. And I'm talking about an extensive library, and DPs in the industry use this to get like motivation or, different things, lighting, whatever. It's very extensive. But the thing is that I took it and I was pulling shots to make like a deck for this pitch that we had. And then I put it on the iPad and created my pitch off of the slides. And so I would time it accordingly and basically tell a story. while they could see something visually, so they're not just listening to my voice and can tune out, think about the weather, or the unfortunate, we were at the time there when a hotel strike was going on just outside the hotel we were at.
Yeah, that was...
That's a whole nother story. But that's noise in the background. That's also distracting. So you give them something to look at and something to really tangibly hold on to. You got them a little bit more. So we found that actually helped because Kathy had done some research on the individual we were meeting with. And coincidentally, on their website, they had their favorite film. And so I took a couple stills from their favorite film and inserted it in there that fit
at the pitch.
Yeah.
And they recognized that and said, "Oh, that's my favorite film." I was like, "Oh, really?"
No
So
That's slick.
again,
I
it's
love
just
that.
little things that you do and the work that you put in ahead of time that allows you to then be like, okay, this is going to get us that one little extra step inside the door.
And also on your iPad too, he had our trailer queued up. He had our artwork queued up, and we did get asked one time, like, show me it. Do you have a trailer right here? Yeah, boom, here we go. We have it right here.
Nice.
So you have to be prepared for anything. And then if they say, yeah, I like that film you're pitching, how much to make it? How much you want? You have to be ready to answer kind of, million. Like you have to be able to answer a round budget that maybe makes you kind of cringe a little bit, but not too bad, So we had to be backed up with all those answers as well.
Now,
So,
for answers like that, are you basically locked in when you say that? Like, $1 million? Is that a number they're gonna remember or like hold you to, or is that kind of like things are fluid and so and so's interested in this now, and of course that's gonna.
Yeah,
we actually had one of those meetings and we put out a number and they didn't even blink.
And to us it was huge.
And to us it was big. And so again, it's one of those things where they're looking for just estimated cost. And are you reasonable? Like, are you just going to say, I want $100 million like Christopher Nolan and make this big epic?
It's less about judging the film maybe, and more about figuring.
Yeah. Figure you out, see if you're realistic, and then also is it realistic for their budget, and then kind of put the two together. And if like I said, like we gave a number and they didn't move, and they're like, okay. And so again, it's a chance to just be ready with every possible like piece of information. Like if you're going in there with a project, have that temporary budget in mind. Like just estimate. Like it doesn't need to be broken down yet. It'd be great if you did, but just have a number in mind and be realistic. But don't be afraid to say it as well. Like that was something that, going into it, I wasn't sure, like me personally, wasn't sure if like saying a number was going to be a detractor. Were they going to, did I just blow it?
But you had that number in mind going in case they asked.
And we talked about it beforehand.
Yeah,
we talked over all of that before we even went to that meeting. Just in case, we bounced off each other. Like, does this sound crazy? Should we go like this? Should we do that?
And also based on conversations we had in the hallways. It's not a lot of networking with other filmmakers, but a couple hallway conversations, we realized the budgets that were going around. We're like, okay, so we felt more comfortable with saying what we did. But, I did hear too that a lot of times they'll ask for, I want a budget. Like I want it broken out. So they want to see if you can budget. So we took our budget that we did for Godless, which we did. We had a budget and I went through and aligned like where did we go over, under. So just in case they ask for that, because they want to see that the business side, because they're in it for the money. I mean, they're in it for the money. If they can make $1 million and no one watches it, they don't care, right? So they want the money. So they want to know that you're buttoned up, and if they're going to give you money to make a film, do you know how to do a budget? Do you know how to follow a budget? That kind of thing. So I did hear about that too, or read about that as well. So
I think that's such an interesting thing about, like, just to talk about, I guess, the history of cinema for a moment, where some people I think get cynical about the money side of it because it doesn't sound like art or whatever. But it's like, listen, movies have always been a business. From the beginning, it's like, hey, come into the tent and watch the train run over you. Like that. It's always, and the second that movies aren't making money anymore is the second that movies stop being made. And until it gets so accessible that anyone can make anything, which hopefully that day comes, I suppose. But like, it's and even a lot of those people probably who are there, like on this side of it, you know, on the one hand, they've got their films where they do this a lot. You know, I'm sure a lot of them would love to, like, every once in a while there's the project they care about, you know. But that's like, now with your film, I want to talk a bit more about, like, getting into some details with your pitch even more, which is, and you alluded to this before, there's a lot of things that your film has as difficulties for pitching, which are pretty typical for independent films, like not having a recognizable cast would be a huge one. Not working with a previously existing IP that's like, oh, we based it on this toy that everybody already loves, or this character. Like, it's not Sherlock Holmes, you know. It's an original story with an original cast, you know, in a lot of ways. And how did you still make you came away with a deal, you know? How did you make your film specifically marketable? Was it playing to those genres and types?
Yeah, I think it was, one, I want to give credit to, you know, Simon and, you know, the crew is that the production quality, people commented on the high production quality that we had, which was a very good use of the money that we did spend. They did comment that the acting was they were really impressed with the acting. So kudos to all the actors, which we already sent out to them saying kudos to them. We got a lot of comments on that. You know, when they said, do you have a star? I think a couple people asked us directly and we're like, no, we don't. But you know what? This is what we do have, right? We are marketable in the LGBTQ. We are marketable as thrillers. We are also dramatic thrillers. So, you know, we're more marketable to boomers. Like, so we had all those statistics kind of lined up to say, this is what we do have.
There is an audience.
There is an audience. Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Which is what a lot of those things are for anyway. It's like, we don't have that, but we have what you want.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And also, you know, we were really realistic is this is going to be we wanted this to be our calling card. We knew this before we started filming. This is our calling card. So we want to make it the best possible with the limitations that we have, make it the absolute best we can, get it out there as our calling card to then get the money for the next film, right? It's like one of those things where, you know, in acting, you know, you can't get an agent until you have an agent. Like, and some agents won't look at you until you have an agent. Oh, someone else liked you? Oh, then I must like you, you know? Yeah. So it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, you already got a distribution deal on first film? What do you have? You know, why did you know? So we knew this was going to be our calling card. We didn't expect to, you know, we don't expect to make $1 billion on it, you know, so we're pretty realistic about it. But when they asked us if we had a star, we just kind of skirted around that, I think.
Yeah, it's also more of, you know, you just go in there and you have the quality that you do. Make sure it's up to a standard, whatever that standard may be, but make sure it meets that standard that you set for yourself. And then from there, it's, you know the story, you know the selling points, you know your audience, hopefully. And that's also something I would advise any filmmaker as well, is like, you go into making a film, at least as a creative, I believe, because you have a story to tell. But who you're telling that story to isn't always defined when you go in to make it. And so use that time while you're making it and as you're in post and when you're getting ready to go to AFM and doing this research, think those questions. Who am I selling to? Who is my audience? And then use that to then compensate maybe for not having a star. It's like she said, you know, it's, for us it was LGBTQ, or, you know, it was mother-daughter stories, or if it was like different things there, and like what audiences are watching those stories, great research, and use that to then say, yes, we don't have a star, but you can still be profitable, you could still reach a large audience because these people are watching it, and this targeted to this group, and you're looking at these kind of people already, whether it's that LGBTQ community, or it's, you know, millennials, or if it's, you know, Gen Z or whoever. Like, you can target those people with this film because it's already geared for them. And so then they look at it as like, okay, maybe it won't have a star, but I can still get it out there and it's still going to reach a lot of people and my company is going to get viewership. And that's as much as you want. And again, it's a business.
Yeah, and I think also the quick to market thing really helped us this year.
Yeah.
Because of people need content. Because of the strike
got
for
it.
so long. It was like, listen, it's ready to, it's off the shelf. I mean, you're ready to go, right? So you can, of course, you know, with any distribution deal, the distributor then shops it out to the streaming or other networks or whatever. So there's still a bit of waiting time. You have to do the closed captions. The QC sometimes has to be done, quality control. So there's some time lag still, but it's like, listen, we're on our side, what we need to do, we're good. So like outside of what, you know, has to be done after you get a deal, sign a deal, like we're we're ready to go. So it's a quick turnaround for them. They don't have to spend a lot of time and money on us, right? So
real quick, something you just mentioned is also QC for quality control. Can you just give a brief explanation for that? Because it's a really interesting part of, like, you think you've got your film done.
Yeah.
You think it's done.
It's all him.
Yeah.
then-
So
yeah.
yeah. You're gonna want to go through some kind of reputable, and distributor may have someone in mind, or the network or wherever they sell to has someone they work with, but it's a company that will look at it and they'll run passes on your film to make sure that, say, a pixel drops out, or the sound isn't 100%, you know, in most places. They're going to check to make sure that it passes. And what we heard from some distributors that we had meetings with is like, there's very rarely that you really fail. If it's like pretty well put together, like ours, like they were just saying about ours, is like, it would probably pass like pretty well. They might run a second pass. They might catch one thing here or there, but then they grade it and make sure that, you know, if it's at this level, you're good to go. If it's this level, we need to make these changes. And so it's ready for streaming. So it's ready for wherever it's going, so it meets that standard, meets that quality.
The other thing we found out is that don't do the QC or the closed captions yourself before you get a deal, because one distributor said that's a part of their expense cap. They were going to do it, right? The deal that we made is the person said, you know what, let's shop it out and see if they want to do one. Like, they may look at it and be like, hey, you know, I don't need to do one. Then there's something called mezzanine QC, which is a very high-level QC. So they're just going to do a quick pass, right? They're not going to get detail, in-depth. They're going to do a quick pass just to get it past their lawyers or whatever. But don't spend the money yourself until you figure out, you know, will my distributor pick up this cost? You know, do I have to do it? What kind of level do they want? Like, because you could be spending money, because QC can cost up to $6,000. I mean, it's not chump change. So it depends on what you do. A closed caption is another one that people can charge you $6 a minute. People can charge you $1.25. So until you get a deal with someone, like, just wait on those things, knowing that you may have to do, and understanding there may be a cost out there. So when you negotiate, you can be like, I don't have $6,000.
And that's where your entertainment lawyer, like we were talking about
Entertainment
earlier,
lawyer.
comes in huge, because even if they don't have it in the initial deal, you can talk to your lawyer and be like, look, we can't afford to put $6,000 on the table for QC. A, is it going to be covered? And then B, can we negotiate that into the deal? And then they can work it in, and they can talk it over, and it's very helpful in that way too.
Yeah, very helpful.
That's good to know. And that makes sense, because there's so many people who, you know, make their film and they get past like that finish line and maybe they're burnt out or the budget's gone, you know, whatever. And distributors work with people like that all the time. So it makes sense that there's some pretty well accepted standards, or like there's ways to work with that, because they want the movies, like they want films to put out there. They understand a lot of them. It's really cool that AFM focuses a lot on independent stuff. So the deals probably reflect being able to handle that kind of thing more as well, which is really cool, because it's also interesting to hear some of the differences between AFM and the March to Film at Cannes, because, or just in general, where you said the deals, or like the real action happens at the end of the week. In Cannes, the beginning of the festival is when everything's happening, you know, or Cannes is less focused on, like, didn't have the same feel of being independent focused. Like, they have it there, you know, but having AFM, like, being that place for films like yours is hugely valuable, and I think is such a cool thing for people who are hopefully in a position to be thinking, which one of these am I going to? you know?
And you bring up a good point too, is, something we found out through research and also talking is, AFM is the biggest market in the world for independents especially, but it's the biggest one. Cannes is relatively big, but it's, like you said, it's not necessarily independently focused, and also it's a lot smaller, and it also, they do their deals and they've got them done before they even like really get into the festival. So for someone who's going into, say they've got a film, they're independent filmmaker, maybe first time going into it, and they're like, what do I do now? There's routes, there's places to go. You can go to AFM, you can sell it there, but a lot of people also ask us constantly is like, well, what about festivals? Are you going to festivals? Festivals are a great route. That's not a terrible way to go, but I believe the goal of a festival is to get noticed and hopefully get a distribution deal, like get someone to notice your film. Mm-hmm. Well, you could do that, or you could go straight to where they are and be like, hey, here's my film, where they don't really care about your festival run. Some people did ask.
Some people.
One or two did ask here and there. But for the most part, they don't care about that. So you can go different avenues, and I think it's just researching what works for you and your film, what your goals are with your film, whether it's to get the most eyes on it as quickly as possible, hopefully get in some smaller festivals and get some buzz around it, and then maybe try to sell it, or whatever it is. There's options, and it just takes the research, and it takes the time to really dive into that research and really put the time and effort early on in your process, rather than waiting until the last minute. And that's like the big message I think that we came across.
And I would say be very clear, like you said, before you make the movie, what are my goals with this film? Because as you know, it is making a film, is very difficult. It's very difficult to do, especially on the low budget. So, if you don't have a goal in mind before you start, then I don't like it. It would be hard. So being clear about what your goals are and being able to say, like we did, we started to enter a few festivals that were early, but we said, you know what, let's hold on the festivals until we see if we even get a deal. Because again, our goal was to just get a meeting. We did not expect to get a deal. So that was not, it would be great, but we weren't expecting that. So we held on the festivals until we decided first, because that's our main goal. So then since we got a deal, we're stopping the festivals, you know what I mean? Which is good, because I don't think they want us to show it at festivals.
Yeah, and some distributors will actually take it to festivals for you.
Yeah.
So it depends
that's true.
who you work with too. So
that could be a part of it, yeah.
Correct. And I mean, we have still a couple that it's entered in already, and we're just waiting to see what happens there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we stopped because we're like, that was our goal with the festivals, is to hopefully get someone to notice it. So now that we have that, we've reached that level, it's like, it's great. It would be great to add some laurels to a poster, but at the same time, we're getting it out there for people to see. So mission accomplished at this point.
Absolutely. And congratulations again for that.
Thank you.
It's something that I've kind of become increasingly aware of, and is definitely being edified in this conversation, is what the role of film festivals for movies actually is, and, I think there's some types of films maybe where the film festival route is maybe the best way to go for them. And it's not even specifically like better films or anything like that. And a lot of it has to do with the fashion of cinema at the time for what is playing well there and what people who go to those are looking for, and the kind of, just like the one, distribution company you were talking about that doesn't take documentaries. There's some that take types of films that right now are doing well at festivals. And also festivals are fun. I like going to them, and it's so I'm glad that you're doing a little bit of that, because it's a good time, and you've made a film, and it's good to party every once in a while for it. So, but I think it's just awesome that you recognized what your goal was, because sometimes people do just make a film and they think, oh, well, I want to make this, and that's nice, that's good, but they don't think about, like what you said, of who is this film for. Like when you ask them, who's the target audience for this? And they like clearly haven't ever thought about it. Like, I guess people who like fantasy movies like Lord of the Rings is like the people who like Lord of the Rings liked the books first, and then there were enough of them that got everybody else in on it. That was an existing IP. It wasn't an original film trilogy, and there had already been an animated film before and all that. It's like, so your completely original fantasy movie, what's the point, you know? But I think it's awesome that you recognize like what your goal was. You knew while you were making this thing that you wanted to go to AFM, and you had your plan going in, and it's paid off. It's like, you know, great job. So
I also think like as an actor, I've been on the other side where all of our actors, our crew, cast and crew gave of their time and talent, and to not have a plan for them to know where it's going. I've been an actor on the other end where I've given my time and talent to a film, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't have any money to finish it," and I'm like, "What?" You know, that happens a lot. Or, yeah, we just did it for our basement to watch it, like that kind of thing. It's frustrating.
It's like, I guess I might use it in my reel.
Right, yeah. Like sometimes you don't even get that as an actor. You don't even get to use it in your reel. And as an actor, and I know he and I've talked about this beforehand, it's like, hey, listen, I want to let them know that what the time and energy and talent that they're giving up, cast, crew, that we have a plan for it, you know, and this is our game plan. So we've been open and honest the entire time to be like, we're going to do this, this is what we're going to do. And we try to send those emails when there's an update, you know, because I think it's important for people that are giving of their time and energy and, you know, not getting paid really a lot at all or any. So like, you know, I think it's important to have that goal and let them know up front what they're doing is going to have an end purpose that will help them as well. I don't know.
Yeah. And also, you know, just getting the chance to show your work, you know, whatever route you take, like we're not here to bash festivals and say don't do it, you know, like there's networking opportunities, there's people that you meet, and same with AFM. Despite it being a business and despite it being business centered, we met so many people there. We met people on the bus from the parking lot. We met people in the lobby. We met people at a Fat Burger when we were having lunch. Like there's so much that you can do at both routes that is not only going to help your film in the moment, but it's going to help you as a filmmaker or a company or whatever. You could glean things from people, and you never know who you're going to meet. So. And, you know, that's an old adage in the business is like, you know, it's who you know. And that's one way to do it is to go out there, whether it's AFM, whether it's festivals, whether it's Cannes, whatever, and just go experience and go learn. And even though we were buttoned up, even though we researched a lot, we learned so much while we were there. And just being there and like maybe not giving a pitch the best or maybe not saying as much as we wanted to. And it's like, okay, debrief, figure it out. Tomorrow we'll go in and do this differently. So it informed us the next time we went to somebody, and it also helped us get to the next meeting and things like that. So I think it's great whatever route you take, but you know, you just have to make the most of it and kind of have a plan. And like Kathy said, you kind of owe it to the people involved, because if you don't put it out and you don't even have an idea of where you want to go, you're already saying to everyone that just gave all of their energy and time to it, it's like, thanks, but no thanks. Because like, what is your point to do that? Even if it's just for you, like, even if you're just going to put it on YouTube, have that out from the get-go and just say, like, here's what we're going to do with it. And have that in mind when you're going into making it, so that people know what they're signing up for and then can just be just as proud if it went just up on YouTube and got a couple thousand views versus going to AFM and getting a deal. You know, it is what it is, but, you know, just give those people that recognition and that respect when you go out making these films.
And one last thing I would say too is, again, not to bash festivals. I love festivals. You know, I love festivals.
Of course, yeah.
I love it. And but, you know, they cost money to go to. They cost money to enter, right? And so, you know, we're looking at costs. You know, AFM's not cheap, right? Going out and staying in Santa Monica, the actual ticket. So like to me, it was kind of like, okay, I would love to go to these festivals. Let me try this route first, because I don't have all that money to be spending on both. You know what I mean? So that was kind of the one thing for me too. Is like, where am I going to get bang for the buck right now? I would love to go to more festivals, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's smart. Like you didn't just show up at the hotel and be like, I'm gonna knock on every door on every floor. You had your whole plan. You approached it with a strategy, and I think it's like you both are a great example of a concept that I like to sort of unpack more. Where someone says, it's about being the right person in the right place at the right time, and so much of that is indicative of what we're talking about. But the thing that a lot of people don't always mention is you have to be the right person too.
Yeah.
You need to be ready for luck when it does show up, like whatever that looks like, or when the person does respond to your email. It's like sending that email out isn't luck. There's a toss-up of who's going to get it back to you, but then having the preparation for your meetings that you had so that you were the right person in the right place at the right time for the people you were meeting as well is such a big part of it. I want to ask one last question before we wrap up here. So we have this whole thing of if you've got a finished film, going to AFM and all that. Would you think there's some value in going to AFM if you didn't have anything to sell? Is there an experience there for people who maybe aren't ready to, get their film out there?
My feeling is, if you don't have anything to sell or ready to make, like pitch, like asking for money, I don't think it's really worth spending the money out there. Because you're not going to get into the rooms. So again, it's not like a festival you can just walk up, and to someone's booth or whatever like that, right? You can't do that. Like, you have to get past the receptionist to get in the room. So unless you have one, it's not like you can walk around and it's in separate rooms. So it's not like you're gaining a lot for the money you spend to just actually get there, stay there, be in that thing. I unless you are asking for something, I don't think I wouldn't do it. Yeah, because you're not going to get in front of those people.
Yeah, and I mean, if you even have just a film to pitch, or you need to complete a film, you need some money to complete a film, we ran into people like that as well. I think that's more beneficial because then at least you have something to offer them, or something to ask, a thing to ask. It's not necessarily a place that you can go and ask questions because they're on a schedule. They have a meeting here, they have a here. Like, they'll block them in 15-minute intervals, 30-minute intervals. They got it all blocked out every day. And they'll squeeze people in where they can, or if someone cancels, they'll drop you in right away. But it's not really, they're not there to answer your questions in the moment. Now, if you ran into them on the street and you happen to know who they are, sure. Or just outside, great. But yeah, like, I don't think, like Kathy said, for the money that you're spending to go in, to even get into the building, it's not worth it to go without some specific target or some kind of goal that you have with a project in mind.
And I
in hand.
Yeah, and I did reach out to a couple of filmmakers that I worked with who I know went to AFM prior years, just to ask some of these questions as well. So, I know we would be available if anyone had any questions, like, hey, I was thinking about taking this there. I wish I got more information from them. I wish someone told me this information before we went out there. So, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Because, like I said, the amount of information we didn't know was staggering.
Yeah.
So we just thought, we're going to go to the FM. We'll do a distribution deal. No idea. Yeah. So I think really talking to someone before you make that financial obligation to go out there and be a part of it, I would run it by someone.
Well, I think this has been a hugely valuable conversation. It's something that pretty much every filmmaker wants to get to. Is what, like anyone who hasn't gotten there yet, it's the milestone that so many people are going for, but you don't really necessarily cover it in film school, or like the filmmakers out there, it's not on the bonus on the DVDs if y'all have those, physical media is the best. But like, yeah, it's I think a lot of people are very intimidated by the business side of it, especially if they believe they're more artistically minded or something. They're like, oh, I'm all about the film. It's like, cool, but the film isn't all about itself either. You've got to get this out there somehow. And hearing your experience, and just little things like, yes, hard work on this actually can pay off. Like, you don't just wing it, be smart about it. And the different, like, just the wealth of advice and experience that you've been able to share with us is absolutely wonderful. I thank you very much for being my guest.
One quick thing about DVDs. We found out, because a lot of people, the deals, they were DVD costs. And we're like, who the heck watches DVDs anymore, right? We're like, we asked that question. Don't be afraid to ask questions, which what our lawyer taught us. She was like, ask whatever you want, right? I'm like, who watches DVD? They said, believe it or not, truck stops. It's a huge seller for people. They said, oh, well, Walmart and them kind of went down a little bit, not selling them as much. They said truck stops is huge in truck stops.
No way.
I was like, who knew?
Fun fact.
Who knew? So, because that's what they have on the road. They have the DVD player. Wow. So, yeah. Who knew?
That's fantastic. Well, good for them. Well, if there's any, cinephile truckers out there listening to this, thanks for spending time with us on the road. I hope you enjoy a good film this evening. And, maybe at some point you'll enjoy a film from these two here. And their film is Godless Children. Kathleen and Simon here's film, Godless Children, they did get their distribution deal, but it's not available yet. So when the film is available, we will be making an announcement on a later episode. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Like, share, subscribe if you feel so inclined. You made it this far. Why not go the extra step? And, the door's always open. We'll be here next time, and we hope you join us. Bye-bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to start your own podcast, why wait? Reach out to us at StudioME.me, and I hope you hear me again soon.